Welcome to the panel discussion, which is, I believe, called "Stupid Things That Bands Do to Try and Get Gigs," basically along those lines. Which is a flashy way to try and get people to come see us talk. But I think basically what we're going to try and cover today is there's a depth of experience here from performers and festivals and management and talent buyers and agents that can talk about effective ways of getting a gig. And I think the reason we came up with this flashy little title was because one of the effective ways to get a gig is to make good impressions and not do some of the things that can close people's minds to you right out of the box. And so it's not going to be the only thing we'll talk about, but that thought was one of the points that people don't always realize is that how you approach things can really make a difference in how effective you are in trying to get work. So what we'll do is what I'd like to do, first of all, welcome the panel. Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
And welcome to everybody out there. And what I'll do is go through a brief round of introductions so everybody can share with you where they're coming from in the food chain on this in this business, and then maybe try and get a sense of who our audience is and what we're trying to accomplish here, and then we'll open it up sort of down the line again to kind of address the question. But we'll start the first round with just a round of sort of biographies. My name's Chris Goldsmith, and I'm independent. I have my own company called Solid Productions, and one of the things I do is I consult for the Belly Up Tavern, which is in San Diego County. And it's a 600-seat nightclub, and it does national touring acts on a regular basis. Everybody from Tom Jones and the B-52s to J.J. Gray and Mofro and Dr. John, and but it's open 7 nights a week, and we do a lot of regional and local talent as well. So we're booking probably between openers and happy hour bands and matinee shows and evening shows, we're probably booking 700 or 800 bands a year. And then my background is that I was a booking agent. I was an agent at the Rosebud Agency in San Francisco for 10 years, representing bands from here like the Dirty Dozen and Beau Soleil from Louisiana, also representing John Lee Hooker, Robert Cray, Ben Harper, the Blind Boys of Alabama, Charlie Musselwhite, mostly in the roots music world is where I was as an agent. And then when I left that, I started my own company, and I also produce records and do some other consulting for management. But I think I'm here right now because of my experience as a talent buyer for the Belly Up.
My name is Shirley Kennedy. My resume is nowhere near as illustrious as yours, but I own SJK Public Relations. I'm a publicist by trade. The company has a booking arm. We do business as Opus Entertainment Agency. So I don't personally do a lot of booking, but I do a little bit of booking. Mostly I focus on the press. Having both is kind of great for us because we have the built-in promo once you get the gig, which is obviously very important, a very important aspect of getting the gig and being able to get it again the second time by bringing in a lot of people. I also manage a blues rock band from Madison, Wisconsin. So we do a little bit of everything at SJK, but like I was saying earlier, the focus is on getting the gig and going from there.
Hello, my name's Tony Moore. I see some familiar faces here, so excuse me if I repeat myself a little bit. I'm a singer and a songwriter, musician. I've made music all my life. I was a founder member of Iron Maiden, and as I've already said a couple of times, I left them because I knew they'd never make it. But I've also had some success. I was in a band called Cutting Crew. We had a big hit, the song called I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight in the USA. It was a #1 hit. As a solo singer-songwriter, I had an album I recorded at Abbey Road that had a #1 Christmas hit in Europe. But in between doing the things that had prominence, I've also been an artist looking for gigs, and I've played every kind of gig you can imagine. In the mid-90s, I began a club called the Kashmir Club, which was a club primarily for songwriters and acoustic-based music, and we discovered people like Damien Rice and Katie Tunstall and Imogen Heap and The Feeling, and it was the place where people like Sheryl Crow and Dave Stewart would do secret gigs when they were in town just because they loved the place, and it was tiny. It was about a quarter of the size of this room. And since then, I've now taken over 3 venues in London, the Bedford, the Regal Room, and the Distillers. And we have somewhere in the region of 35 acts a week that we book between the 3 venues, plus outside events. So and we get about 150 people a week approach us, new people, to play at the different venues and different shows that I put together. So I've seen and heard a lot of what people do, and I've been a people doing things that I'm going to talk about people doing, if that makes sense.
Hi, I'm Tina Terry. I'm an agent with Pont Talent. We are a blues agency, have been for 23 years. I must say that I did become an agent by default, and it was because I realized that getting the gig pays the bills. I wanted to be a manager. I thought that was a simple path to take. I ended up signing bands that didn't need a manager, they needed an agent. So that's how I landed here. Been doing it 11 years, and hopefully we can give you guys some good advice.
Hi, I'm Paul Benjamin. I put on a North Atlanta Blues Festival, been booking blues acts in Maine since 1978. I also produce CDs and DVDs, put on about 50, 60 shows a year. Currently the president of the board of directors of the Blues Foundation based in Memphis, Tennessee, till October as I roll off the board, and as of next week I will be the new manager of Kenny Neal. So.
Congratulations. So that's our story, and I think before we delve into the topic, I'd like to just get some shows of hands as to how many people out here are artists themselves looking for. Okay, so mostly anybody that's an artist representative management other than self-managed. Okay, and are there any agents out there or anybody else that we have to worry about giving away trade secrets? No agents. All right. Well, that's awesome. This is a working panel, and these are people. You're all looks like I'd say we're in the high 90% artists, and I assume that you're here because you're a gigging band that is, either struggling or to find work, or just looking for ways to improve how you get work. And I assume there's a varying level of bands that are just starting out, and maybe some bands that are actually out there working already. We'll try and cover all of that as we roll through this. I think. I'd like, as we go down the line, we'll go down one more time, just and take a moment, each of us, or a little bit more time, each of us, to talk about the question at hand, which is what is the most effective way to get work if you're a self-represented band, or representing a band that's just starting out. And if any, if there's other questions, yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And when I say bands, I guess I kind of mean all artists looking for work. But performing the track is something actually that you may be able to speak to it, Tony. But that's not something that I have a lot of specific experience with. But I think that some of these same sort of insights will apply no matter what style of music you are, or what whether you're a singer-songwriter or a band. So as we each start, maybe we can kind of try and think of what the stupidest thing you think somebody is that they could do, when they're first approaching or trying to get work. I would say, to me, the stupidest thing that people do is spend a lot of money trying to impress somebody with promotional material. I think that as a talent buyer, You know, and as Tony said, 150 bands a week, which is mind-boggling. But
No.
even
35 acts a week.
no, but you would submit. You
Oh, yeah,
said
yeah, sorry,
150
yeah.
submissions.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and you, please speak. Anybody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on these, but I think that usually the Glossy Kit, it doesn't add validity. I think that it belies that the person that's sending it may not understand the real motivation for wanting to book a gig if you're a talent buyer. You're in the music business because you love music. You're getting a paycheck to be a talent buyer because you're putting a band in there that makes money, draws people. And so what you need to figure out is how can you most effectively communicate that you are going to draw people. The other thing that people do a lot is say, we're really good. And, you know, and you probably are, you know, and there's a lot of bands that are. Of course, I've also heard a lot of bands that say they're really good that aren't. But that's not even the point, because a lot of bands that draw really, really, really well, I can't stand. I can't stand to listen to them. But that's my own personal taste too, you know. So there's other people that obviously love them. So when you're dealing with a talent buyer, a lot of times you have to realize that they're dealing with a lot of different genres of music. They're dealing with they have a personal taste that is, one thing it's definitely not is the same as yours. But it likely could be you're talking to somebody who likes death metal and you're a blues artist, but they're still a professional and they're going to book you. But they're going to book you because you can draw, you know, essentially, or they think there is the potential for you to eventually draw, which is another pitch. I mean, a pitch is we have the ability when people see us to grow. But so I would say when I was first starting out as a musician, I was in a band that played in San Diego quite a bit. And it was actually called Borracho y Loco, which means drunk and crazy in Spanish. And, you know, we became a regional phenom and would sell out the Belly Up, which is sort of like a Tipatina-sized club. And we were making like, you know, $4 to $5 grand a night playing the Belly Up once a month. And then, which was, even back then, was really, you know, good money. And then we would sort of spread it. We were sort of spread out regionally, and we started from a hub, and we spread out. But the way we got that was not only by being very good, which we were, in my opinion, but we also were really aggressive in capturing our audience. And back then we didn't have email. We were you know, we're almost like in horseless carriages, you know, horse and carriage running around. But we collected mailing addresses. And we created a fanzine, and we made this. We put a lot of effort into our little fanzine and made it kind of entertaining and fun to read. And we would also, like when we'd go into a new venue, we would usually have tried to go into these situations play like a free event, play in a college, try and build a ground base before we went to the commercial venue, and try and know already that we have some mailing addresses out there and some people that liked us. And then we would also bring people with us from our community, and we would do that sometimes even by renting a bus or, you know, and dragging them along with us. And so by doing that, the first time we went into a commercial venue, we were successful. And the way we got the shot was we made the convincing argument that we were going to bring people to them, and we showed them how we were going to do it. And that was how we got our foot in the door. Was this is what we're going to do. This is how we promote, and this is what we're going to do. And you could sell that without anybody hearing a note of your music. If you can convince them of that, they won't even need to listen to the music as a talent buyer. They will go, hey, yeah, let's do it. You know, and then, as you were saying, the most important thing, even more important than getting the gig, is making sure that you deliver so that there's a second gig. But getting that foot in the door, I think you have to convince them that you're going to be able to bring people. So that's my spiel.
Well, I tend to agree with a lot of what you're saying, Chris. And I actually worked with a band once. He said, well, just get us in there. We're good. They're going to like us. I said, they like you a hell of a lot better if you bring people to buy their liquor and eat their food. You all have the same goal at the end of the day, and that is to make money. And that's even more important to the venue because they want to keep doing what they do. So you do need to make sure that they feel that you're going to bring people. What you're saying about the glossy kits and all that, that's nice. What they want, bottom line, is to hear your music. So you're better off just sending them a demo or a copy of the CD. Don't go to all this expense and trouble of making something that they don't quite need just yet. So the main thing is to convince them that it's worth their while to invest the time in you to let you play there. And whatever that takes, you can use examples. Like, for example, sometimes we'll include, and we talked about this in publicity, but we'll include the tour schedule, and that gives the venue an idea, wow, these guys are serious, they're out there, they must be drawing, or these people wouldn't keep booking them, especially the better known the venues are. They're like, yeah, great. So that'll help you get booked. Anything that you've got that's going to help to convince this venue to invest their time and, in essence, their money in you, then that's going to go a long way toward getting you in the door. And you also need to keep in mind, a lot of people, I think, misconstrue, it's the music industry and you can be a lot more casual or, a little less professional, but I think professionalism is everything. Don't send them emails with misspelled words in them or, just look like you don't care. Look like you're going to put forth that effort that it's going to take to make your show a success, and then you're going to be a lot more successful getting booked.
I think we have a question over there, Chris.
Oh, we didn't, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the comment that you just made to me is somewhat contrary to the discussion, really, because if I send a printed CD to one of you as a talent buyer, and I just wrote on it with a marker, does that not show that I probably don't care so much and not organized enough to really have something that you're saying so that it was very organized and that you're actually attacking to be able to attract people and to like you have a good tight organization? To me, a core package, I would think as a buyer would also be, it's almost like first impressions. If you're not meeting them in person, how is that going to be very good looking? Like, well, if they can't even print me something somewhat decent, especially for how cheap it is to print that kind of stuff anymore. You know what I'm saying? I just have a hard time believing that, really.
Well, the thing is, who's, like you're saying, it's cheap to print it now, who's still writing on them? I mean, and if you do write on them, the buyer wants to hear your music. When I talk about typos and misspellings, that's if you're doing an email inquiry. But once you're sending them a sample of your music, they want to hear it. That's going to be the bottom line on that.
And I think there's a difference between a professional presentation and a glossy presentation that's over the top, And I think that your most important thing to communicate is that you are doing that you're capable of doing business at their club, and that your head is on straight. And I think that if you have this super nice photo where you're all done up and and it's like, and you think that and you laminate your bio and those kinds of things. I mean, I just don't think that at least in the sort of nightclub world that I'm working in, that has as much impact as
Well, I'm sure you see things that I'm not. Maybe I'm envisioning something different than what you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
To me, just a nice, clean presentation that's simple to get. Like, this is who we are. We want to talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's why I just wanted to mention it as if anyone else is thinking, like, well, what kind of
Sure.
screen are we talking about?
Sure. And I would also say that other people, as we'll go down the list, will have a different experience than mine, too. Mine is as a talent buyer of a nightclub that's pushing through national talent a lot, and this is the thing. You have a small club where the music might matter a lot more than how many people they're going to draw. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
All of us have a different experience of what we're booking when we're booking music, but there's some pretty much fundamental aspects that will apply to every artist trying to get a gig if you're not already known. And I'm presuming that, I come from England, so I don't know a lot about many people over here anyway, but I'm presuming that everybody here is at a point where you're looking to break through to another level. The venues that I run are primarily song-based, acoustic-based venues. Although we have bands, but they're bands who are, we don't do death metal or indie rock or dance music or heavy metal. These are genres that we don't specialize in, we don't understand, and we're not suitable for. But whatever it is you do, the most important thing you need to do to start with is to research the venues that you're approaching. 150 people a week contact us because we primarily ask for people to contact us by email with MySpace accounts. I don't want physical product, mainly because we are not located in one place at one time. And if a CD arrives and it gets put down and moved and lost, we don't get to hear it, and then people get frustrated that we haven't heard it. But we have an email that we all share within the booking team, and we ask people to send us a little bit of information about the band and a link to some MySpace so we can see and hear some music. But within the 100 to 150 people a week that approach us, at least a third are brand new punk bands and thrash metal bands that would love to play our venue. They've heard so much about us. But actually, they haven't really heard anything about us. They just found us in a listing along with 1,000 other venues, and they put together a form letter, and they've sent it. And some of them are dumb enough to include all the other venues in the carbon copy. So the first thing as that arrives, I just bin it. Because if you can't be bothered to approach me directly and know the kind of music that we program, it's pretty obvious that you're not going to be playing the kind of music that we want to book. The next thing is that because of the kind of music that we work with, which is emerging acts that are about to break, we hope, we know that most of the artists can't really sell a ticket. It's a hard thing to do because there's this jump between people that will queue up round the block and buy a ticket to see you, and you calling all your friends and all your contacts and all your work colleagues and saying, we've got a gig tonight, come down and support us. And there's only so much mileage in that ability to motivate your friends and family and local fans to support you at gigs. You have to find a way of translating what you do into something that people want to buy a ticket for. And that is about the talent that you are. We're talking about talent buyers. I'm not strictly a talent buyer in that sense because it's a little bit more of the level that Chris is talking about. We're talking about touring acts that you buy. You know how much it's worth to pay for an act because you know how much you can sell the tickets for and you can work your numbers. But the truth is that even if we're working at a different scale of economies, we are buying your talent. And if you don't have much talent, or your talent has not developed enough yet, then it's going to be very hard for you to sell a ticket and for us to have a full venue. So this is the constant fight and argument between artists and venues, which is when are you ready to be able to approach a venue that's at a certain level, within the chain, that you can actually both perform and be of the same quality as the other artists and be able to bring an audience to come and see you there. And it's chicken and egg, because you need to find somewhere to play in order to learn your craft, to get your chops, to pay your dues. And all the great artists that you'll ever see, from Prince to the Rolling Stones to Sting, have done thousands of gigs in shitty little places where they got paid no money. The PA was so crap they couldn't hear themselves. There was no monitors. They were being talked all the way through, and they get stiffed on the money at the end of the night, right? But without doing that, you don't understand who you are as an artist. You don't know, you cannot form who you can be so that when things are a bit tough, you know how to ride the storm. You know, when you've got a tough crowd, you know how to pull something extra out of the bag and really show them what you do. So I'm already looking for an artist that's got something about them, even if it's not completely developed. So from my point of view, the first and most important thing is the music, because these are our venues, and I want us to represent the kind of music that we're very proud of. So even if you can guarantee 300 people, if it's the music we don't like and it doesn't fit us, we'll have to say no, because it doesn't do us any good or you any good in the long term. The second thing is the way that you present yourself is very important, because you only have one shot at impressing us. And from your point of view, you send one email and one package to us, and you're sat there waiting for an answer. From our point of view, we're receiving 150, and we're working our way through it, and sometimes things go into spam, and things get lost, and sometimes, we're on holiday, or we're doing a festival, and it's... So for us, we need you to be focused. We need you to present something that is really well written, and two things will make a big difference. If you've got some quotes in there, if you are good enough that you can find somebody in the industry to give you a quote, that will make our eyes pop up. So if you read, if you come up to Chris, and you play him some songs, and he goes, actually, I really like you guys. And you say, would you give us a quote? And Chris will go, these guys are raw and rough, but they played a few opening slots for us at the Belly Up, and I think they're going places. You put that in your first paragraph, immediately people go, okay, well, Chris says that. There's something going on there. The second thing is, work your research to find the connections to the people that you want to speak to. So if you know that Chris has some friends that are lawyers that you know, or managers that you know, or other bands, and you say to them, we'd love to get a gig at the Belly Up, how do we do that? And they say, well, Chris is the man for you. And you say, well, would you make an introduction? Then, or would you mind that we use your name? If somebody writes to me and says, James Wiley, who's a great lawyer friend of mine, and said we ought to get in touch with you, immediately I will listen with different ears. Because if James says that they're good, they may well be good. They still may be not right, but I'm already predisposed to think that they're going to be good. The third thing, even though I said there was only two, is that on your MySpace site, you need to put only 2 or 3 bits of music, that your strongest bits of music, but you need to put a really well-written bio in the third person. Go online, go on Google, and study how to write a press release and how to write a professional bio. Because that will be your calling card that will travel ahead of you, even though you don't know it's happening. So let's just say you've got a gig in New Orleans, and a local paper wants to do a piece on you, and they look up your website, and what all newspapers want to do is be lazy. Right? They just cut and paste, exactly. They want to take it out and put it in as if they'd written it, and maybe just tweak a bit here and there, because they've got so much to do, they don't want to rewrite your bio for you or your press release. So if you've got something that says, I really used to dig Jimi Hendrix when I was a kid, and it's my biggest influence to play the electric guitar, and I love to pour henna on my hair when I'm doing a big solo because that really gets the audience going, and I think I'm going to be big and famous, that's pointless. But if you go, Todd McCarthy was influenced by Jimi Hendrix at an early age when his parents bought him a Jimi Hendrix DVD. Since then, he's been impressing people around the world with his phenomenal guitar playing ability. Chris from the Belly Up says this kid's the next star. You put it in a piece like that, then that does the work for you. You've also got to make sure that your website or your MySpace is copy and pasteable. Forget Flash. It's pointless. The amount of times I want to put something on our website and it's a Flash thing and I can't copy and paste it, I go, bollocks, I'm not going to do it. You'll lose the prominence. And the third thing is, get some good pictures. Enough to give a flavor of who you really are. And just look at some of the pictures of great artists that have been done and copy them, if you haven't got the inspiration to do it. But if you're just like, 4 blokes or 3 blokes or a solo artist, and you've got your mate to take the picture and you're kind of standing there and it just doesn't look good, that doesn't represent you very well. So your MySpace or your website is your ambassador in this business. And if you make it simple and clean and professional and easy to work with, it will stand you in enormously great stead for the future. And ultimately, you just have to be brilliant at what you do, whatever the genre is, whether you're working to tracks, which we don't do, but there's lots of clubs and nightclubs that are happy to have artists that work to track, whether you're a solo singer-songwriter or whether you're a band, you have to be great at what you do. Because if I'm getting 150 emails a week, just think what every other single venue in the world's getting. And you are part of the noise out there. You have to raise yourself above the noise, and you have to deliver something that will actually make a difference. Okay, I think I've said enough there. Passing on.
If it's possible, I'd like for Paul to go next, because what experience I'm going to bring is how to work with all these people.
Okay, I kind of look at it in a different aspect. I do like getting the physical material on a band. I like getting the CD and the promo package, and the promo package is important to me when you put that package together. I don't want it to be 25 pages of who you opened for or who you think you opened for, or you happen to be in the same neighborhood as a band that played down the street. I like to see a photograph of the band. I like to have the CD with the actual band members who are going to be on the road and touring with that band, or artist, if it's an individual solo duo. I get a lot of packages that it's a great package, it's great bio, great photograph, and then you go to see that band someplace because they invited you to come see them, and you look at the picture and there's 4 different people out there, and it's not these, who you expected. So you need to be upfront and honest with when you're going to send that promo package out. Make sure it's the band that you are going to be showing up with. Make sure it's professional. It goes a long way with me. Of course, the blues communities are different than some of these other genres. I deal primary in blues, and the blues is a family. I can call, if they have a booking agent, I know who that agency is because there's only half a dozen really good booking agencies in the blues world. And so if it's a blues club, I know all the club owners from around the states, and or a festival, I know the festival promoters. We talk. We are a family, and you're not going to bullshit and get into a blues club. It just doesn't work because we talk too often, and we know who shows up, who doesn't show up for gigs, and how professional they are, and what they look like on the stage, and what they sound like. So, before you're ready to jump into that next step, clean your own backyard up first. Be ready to contact, a Piedmont Talent, to get on their booking agency, or to call me to get on my festival, because we're going to do our research. So you want to be professional before you get out there, and that's extremely important for the new people that's starting out there. Is do your own homework, check out where you're looking to get, and do it the right way to get there, and don't take the shortcuts, because it's going to come back and bite you if you try to take the shortcut. Yes.
Do you guys accept the EPKs?
I don't like them, personally. I get them all the time. I do listen to them. I'm old-fashioned. I rather look and have something in my hand and look at it and read it. The electronic press kits they're fine in some parts, but I personally do not like them. But I do listen to them and I look at them, but I prefer not to.
I kind of feel that MySpace has taken that link. There's really not as much of a need to worry about a professional EPK anymore. You can put your press photos on your MySpace. Everything can be there. The media can get to it. I would also like to take another step and say, don't forget that your own domain is as important as a MySpace. Do not think that MySpace is going to be the end-all, be-all. Find the money, get yourself a professional website. It will speak volumes about rising yourself above. I think the interesting thing that I would like to come back to, since all of these guys had different opinions, is learning how to not get so caught up in maybe hearing Chris say, I don't want the glossy, and then hearing Paul say, I really want it. You have to know what you are trying to present. It goes back to what Tony said. You have to know who you are. You have to know who your people are. Start with what I like to call the, illusion of grandeur. Go ahead and think of those people that you want to stand next to. Do some research. Find out how they got there, the people they know. Do like Tony said, when you find that person that can connect you, ask. Every question is worth asking. If they don't want to help you, they'll tell you no. So as an example, you're trying to get in with Chris at the Belly Up. What's your capacity?
Talent buyer.
No, I'm sorry, the venue capacity. I'm thinking like an agent, I'm sorry.
600.
Okay, you're very aware that you may not be drawing 600 people, but you're going to start pursuing Chris to get there. What you want to know is, what rooms is Chris looking at to see how the bands are growing and developing? And that's the rooms you want to put yourself in. If you understand how a market grows, you will grow into that room. So do the research on your markets, know what those rooms are, and put yourself there. It is very important to understand that if you have a mission of a Belly Up, don't go book at the local bar just because you can get a gig in town. Be patient, find a way to build yourself and your press to the point that you're going to get the room that Chris would look at. And then eventually grow that room till you sell that out, and then Chris will call you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for those. And I'd like to just take a moderator's prerogative and summarize some things, and then I want to hear whatever's on your guys' mind and see if we can help you out any further. It's interesting as we go through this, there are, sometimes, as you pointed out, contradictory pieces of advice here, and I'm just contemplating this. And some of the issue is that, there's different kinds of gigs, and there's different reasons that you're trying to play a gig. And all of those factor into how your best approach is going to, what the best approach is going to be. You know, there's festival gigs where there's a certain value to entertaining an audience that already exists, and in that case, the presentation of the music and how you look, it makes more difference than it does to a club that's churning out, you know, a lot of nights a week and doesn't have a captive audience as much. Obviously, draw is important to the festivals as well, but there is an additional component that you can appeal to that has no impact on a nightclub, or less impact on a nightclub. So keeping that in mind, you know. There's also the showcase room, which is, you know, another situation where the music is going to matter more than anything. You know, it's like if you're a tastemaker room and you're 50 capacity, and your whole reputation is built on, you know, providing, you know, the cutting edge of bands, that person is going to listen to the music more than somebody else that might be more interested in draw. So there are a lot of different kinds of rooms, and the approach may need to be different compared to you know, or in relation to what it is that the room is, or the gig is that you're trying to get. The other thing is, why are you playing that room, or why are you trying to get a gig there? And that's also you know, something to really keep in mind as to, you know, which venues you want to approach. What is your purpose for gigging here? Is it to get signed, or do you feel like are you playing original music, and your goal in life is to get a, you know, whatever a record deal means these days, but to sort of make it on a national scale? Are you somebody who's regionally focused and just wants to work regionally and has a band? Maybe you're even playing covers, or you're a party band, and your goal is to just kind of increase your regional audience. You know, those will be different approaches, and you would want to play different venues, you know. A lot of people approach the Belly Up, and they really shouldn't be, they don't even want to play the Belly Up, you know, and they just don't know it. There's another room in town that is all about breaking independent young bands, and that is where we eventually send them if they, you know, if we get to the bottom of it. So, you know, I think that you also have to keep in mind why you're gigging, what the purpose of the gig is, and make sure that you're playing venues and going after situations that are consistent with what your ultimate goal is. So I think those were the points that I wanted to make. I do agree that press quotes and other kinds of quotes from familiar sources are an effective thing. I also think that the e-world is a place to spend time and energy from the promotional side, much more so than, you know, with some exceptions like Paul and maybe the festival world, but certainly in general, having a good presence and having music available online is probably more effective overall than physical product and kits these days. The last thing I would say, and then we'll open it up to questions, is ask questions. You know, if you get somebody on the phone, the last thing they want to hear is, well, I shouldn't say, and I'm a little bit, okay, as you've heard, I have a negative bent maybe, but the last thing I want to hear is like a whole life story, you know, or a whole thing, you know. The way you're going to get me sucked in is to ask me to tell you my life story. Then all of a sudden, you got me, you know. So, and you know, and you learn, that's how you learn, too, about whether you're in the right place, you know. What is your capacity? Or, you know, who have you done lately that's done well? You know, we play this kind of music. Which bands in that genre have done well for you? How did they end up doing well? You know, so you get, if you can get somebody talking, you know, that is going to be much more effective than talking to or at them. And I get a lot of that when I get somebody on the phone. 9 times out of 10, they're going on to a point where they lose my attention. And the ones that are inquisitive and are just trying to like figure out how to do it, those are the ones I'm more likely to give a little more time to, and it may be a slightly more effective technique for securing work. So with that cross section of views and opinions, let's see if there's anything else out there on anybody's mind.
Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter doing solo acoustic act.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's difficult to move up. You have to put coffee houses and listening rooms. Is it, and I know it's a difficult question to answer specifically, but is it better to get a little band backup, single original
and I mean, anybody else want to answer this too, but I would just say that you can get, I mean, Leo Kottke plays solo, and he charges $40 in a 600, I mean, we're grossing, you know, $24,000 at the door putting Leo Kottke on. So it's not necessarily solo that is a problem, but I would say that it is harder. It's not, it doesn't make it impossible, but I do think that it is harder to grow especially in a club environment, as I think there's less opportunities for solo than there is with combo, but then you also have higher expenses, and you got to deal with temperamental bandmates. Anybody else have anything else
I
to
mean,
say about that?
my venues specialize in solo up to very large lineups of music, but primarily solo or duo artists. But we are in the minority. Most clubs and most venues are set up for bands to come and play, and as a solo artist who doesn't have, and forgive me if you do, but if you don't have a big following already, it's very difficult for you to sell yourself to a venue that will go, okay, what's your draw? Because we need 300 or 400 people, and you're used to playing 50 people in a coffee house. The secret is really simple. Whatever it is you do, whether you play the blues, whether you play heavy metal, whether you're a singer-songwriter, you have to be magical. And not everyone is magical. There's lots of great musicians and great performers that will enjoy performing music, and people will enjoy listening to their music. But the point where that changes is inherent within the artists themselves. And to have a career doing this, you all have to become the iPod of the music world, not the Zune. All right? You have to be the thing that people want to buy, not the thing that looks like the thing that people want to buy. And that's a really hard thing, because at some point in your career, you have to kind of look at yourself and you go, how long have I been doing this? What is it, if it's not happening any more now than it did 10 years ago, what is it that I'm not doing right? What is it that I should change? Or should I reevaluate my journey in the professional world of making music? Because even for the people who are doing it professionally, it's tough to make money and have a career and make a living out there. All I can say is that the artists that I've seen walk through my door, like the first time Damien Rice played, we were in tears. We cried. He was so beautiful as a performer. The first time I heard Katie Tunstall, even though she wasn't doing the material she does now, you could see that there was something very special in what she did. And we have artists that very quickly go to a point where if we put them on, we have to, most of our shows are free, by the way. We work under the principle that we're supporting artists that don't have a big draw. So we're not going to pay you, but we're not going to charge on the door either. We're going to make it easy for people to come and find you, and we'll make money on the back end, on the bar and the food. And it's an equitable arrangement. We provide a great PA. We have a great reputation for finding people, so people come and come to the venue, not even necessarily just to see you. They come because they want to be at the venue because they know something will be happening that's quite good. But there comes a point where now we have to sell a ticket in order to monitor the numbers of people coming, because we'll have people queuing around the block. When Imogen Heap was just about to break, we did our last free show, and we just squashed the last person through the door before we realized we can't do this anymore. And that's the reality and the truth, that you have to have something that's so good in whatever it is you do that people will start to want it, independently of you even telling them that you do it. You just do your thing, and there will be people lining up and go, where can I get a CD? Where are you playing next? Love what you do. Want to be a part of it.
And also what the goal is of what you want to do with your gigging, you know. I mean, if you're a singer-songwriter and your object is to get signed, you may not want to put a band in there that doesn't well represent what you're trying to do. Sometimes less is actually a better and more effective way to communicate what your message. But if you're trying to like build a gigging base around a town, it may be worth the artistic sacrifice to add the musicians into the mix to be able to get a little bit more vibe, a party vibe. So again, it does depend on the goal as to whether you should use additional musicians or not, I think, partly. Yes.
And for that, Ed, what kind of value would you like? House concerts, living room concerts?
What do you mean by?
There's a.
Having a friend provide a space for you to invite people to come listen.
So I'm hogging this mic, but I love house concerts. I think they're a brilliant idea. Interestingly enough, it's kind of an American thing that's crossing over into Europe and into the UK. And for those of you who don't know about it, you know, people who love music open up their homes, invite their friends round, and book acts. And if you might only have 20 or 30 people turn up, but everybody donates $15. That the people who love the music, I'm generalizing now, but something like that, they put on some food and a meal, they put the artists up. If you get even 20 people turn up who pay $15 each, that's $300. And if they all buy a CD at $10, that's another, you've made $600, and you've played to people who want to hear you because the person who's booked you is their friend who's got this house. I think this is a very interesting circuit to help develop smaller artists by putting them in environments where the people are predisposed to like them. But again, you've got to be quite good. You know, somebody who's going to open their home up to an artist coming in is only going to do it for acts that they've seen or heard of, that they really want to share that with their friends. But it is a very fascinating alternate circuit because a bar has enormous overheads. You know, I have a pub. It costs us thousands and thousands of pounds a week just to open the front door. So we have to be profitable in everything that we do. Whereas these people can have a really lovely house out in the countryside with a little swimming pool, and they have no overheads. They can do these every weekend and do it for the love of music, and it helps artists to gain an income, to build a fan base, and to get their chops. I think they're a great thing to do, and they should be more encouraged, I think.
My question is this: if you've already saturated pretty much the region where you live, like Northwest Louisiana, we've already saturated that area, we feel, because everybody wants us to play every single weekend. We don't want to do that. We don't want to wear our welcome out right there. So we're actually wanting to step out a little bit. And I say regionally, somebody said, well, that's the home, your pub. So we're actually next year wanting to start our 2010 summer tour, and I know I need to start planning for all that now. And just kind of go around, Houston, Waco, Dallas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, and come back. At that point, when do we get a talent agency or a booking agent to actually start helping us spread out a little bit of being an emerging indie artist and a reputable booking agent?
Well, there is some rhyme or reason to it, but then again, some of it can be timing. You have to have a regional base. You have to start there. I think if you want a reputable agent, that is exactly the goal you should make happen. It's interesting, and you obviously know agents that you're interested in pursuing.
Well, not that I would really trust,
Okay. Well, that's a different issue. We try hard. We do.
I'm on Santa Claus.
We've got friends, I can be your booking agent. I know such and such over here, and I know such
Well, I think
and right now, I do all the booking, which we open for big acts. We do James Otto, Noah Jones.
I think the key is
So Disney World, and so we've kind of got that saturated. And like you said, well, we live in Northwest Louisiana, which is above I-10, so we're a bunch of rednecks out there. So we open up the pasture instead of the house.
right. No, I think the key is you need to gain your region. And I guess the reason I asked that question is, again, you have to know an agency as much as you know the rooms you're trying to play. You have to know if what you're offering them is what they're looking for. Personally, I really live by the rule that I don't know that always agents can be sold. I think they find you. I think it's the energy you put into it and what you do and the team you start building behind you that makes an agent want.
And that's kind of what I'm waiting on. I'm not going out trying to find a booking agent to bring on board. I'm really not. I'm just kind of with what you said. We're going out there regardless. We're going to do it. We've already got the RV picked out. We ain't got the tour bus yet, but we got the RV picked out. and we're doing it. And I'm on the radio. I've got the boys playing on the radio. We're so proud because
You're doing it the right way. You really are. You've got the energy. You know what you're doing. Just keep doing it.
And you're probably
They'll come to you.
one step shy of being ready for an agent, I would
Yeah.
say. I mean, if you go out and establish your regional base, once you've actually done that round once, and if it is successful, then you'll have a basis for going out and talking. When you only are established in your closer region, I think that's too early, and I think 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, you'd be better off doing it yourself. You'll do a better job, especially than a novice. But even then, yeah, yeah. So
I think, good advice, and Paul just brought this up. When you get to the point that you have your region, Houston, Oklahoma, say at least a 4-state radius, if you can make that happen. When you're bringing heads to those shows, start inviting the agents out.
Yeah. And the thing to keep it,
you look at who else other bands that
That
you
are
Who do you
like
like
you.
and who represents them?
the thing to keep in mind too, to add on what you all are saying about doing it prematurely, you got to keep in mind that once you engage an agent, then you're splitting what you're making. So you got to be in a position to be able to split what you're making, because the agent's not going to work for you for free. Well, I see that a lot with bands. We've actually got a pretty successful band over in Orlando, Florida, I recently discovered, and it's a complete family run. Nobody gets paid but the band type of thing. So that's pretty normal, actually. But you'd be surprised. Like, we get hit up by bands all the time. And you'd be surprised, though, and I do listen to all of them. And sometimes I'll go and listen to one that blows me away, and I may want to work with them. So you just never know. But I think it does make a difference, like everyone else is saying, that you've established somewhat of a base and made it appear that you're going somewhere with it, not that you're just out hanging out on the weekend playing gigs.
And your one resource to specifically answer the question, where do you find these agents and whatnot, is like Polestar is the magazine. And if you subscribe to Polestar, you can look by venue, see what bands are playing there, look at who those agents are, and you'll pretty quickly see it's not a huge, there's a finite number, and you'll start to get to know them. And if you get to know them well before you approach them and really understand who they're representing and what they're doing, you'll have a more effective approach to them than if you were to just start calling blind.
Maybe just to add to that thought, I guess, is that it seems like in the business we all have this bridging the gap problem in all these topics. We would get to one point where it's like, okay, I'm here, but how do you get over there? So I think agents are the big thing, because one mistake a lot of bands think, like they say to an agent, well, we're willing to play for nothing. Well, to an agent, that's
Right.
Gosh, don't tell me that. Exactly. I don't want to hear that.
It's a grudge gig.
It's like, yay, I'll be busy making no money. Back to the topic of stupid things bands do. Yes, never tell an agent that you will work for nothing, and never tell an agent you're better than anyone they represent.
Amen.
I think the other thing is, it's slightly different in the UK because we don't quite have the touring market that you have in America, but most agents have a kind of like a pro bono part of their work where they will look for unsigned acts that aren't making money yet, but they are pretty convinced that with a little bit of work and a little bit of help, they will make money, and would be prepared to invest their time in helping develop that artist. Because one of the big things about this bridging the gap business is that if you're really good, but nobody knows who you are, how do people get to know that you're really good? It's this horrible little cyclical problem. And you know that if what you deliver is really good and you are put on a stage in front of people who are predisposed to like the kind of thing you do, because it's that festival or that lineup, there's a very, very good chance that you'll actually start winning fans in the audience and building your audience out of that. I work very closely with all the agents in London. They're all kind of my friends-ish, because I don't pay any of the artists. But we all understand that actually I'm helping to grow the seeds to get them to the point where they can make some money for the agents. And every now and then, and it's very rare that I do it, because in order to do it, it has to have value. When I find an act that I know in my heart has the ability to go all the way, I make the phone call. And about 6 months ago, I called a friend of mine who's one of the main guys at William Morris in London, who I've known for years. And I said, there's this guy, he's fantastic, he's unsigned, he's got nothing, but I think he's brilliant, and I want you to know about him. And he said, we're not taking on any more unsigned acts. It's just, we've got so much going on. What's his MySpace? He calls me back 10 minutes later and says, okay, well, we kind of, I think he's great. We'll take on one more. If you've got his phone number, right? Within half an hour of that call, a call gone through to a management company that was working with him, who also heard his MySpace. Within 6 months, he'd signed a deal with EMI. He's just signed a massive deal with Columbia and Amanda Ghost, who's an English writer but is heading up Columbia in the States. And he's over here now writing with all of the big writers, being groomed for his big first release in the kind of James Morrison, Paolo Nutini kind of area. But there was something in him that was just ready to go. And so my friend Solomon, he could see that, and he wanted to be in at the beginning, because he knew that if he was in at the beginning, there's a pretty good chance that relationship will grow all the way. Yeah, but you have to play. It's like playing poker, and you've only got one hand, right? You have to play that card at the right time. If you play it too soon, you blow your connections, right? If you wait too long, someone else will kind of come in, and it's a hard thing to find. And the secret, of course, is that if you're really good and you can deliver, and an agent takes a risk and puts you on a line on a bill, and then it kicks off, the rest becomes history to some degree. But it's finding that moment, and you have to be ready for it.
Well, I think this is, and we'll take your question in a second, but I think this brings up a really good point, which we've touched on a little bit before, and that is that one of the things about this business is it is a networking business. And a lot of times what differentiates a great unsuccessful band from a great successful band is how well they network and use their contacts. And one thing about most people in the music business is they like to discover things. They don't like to be told something's great, especially directly from the person that thinks that they're great. So like an artist calls you up and says, you should sign me, I'm great. The agent will probably be turned off by that. And same with the talent buyer too. Now, if Paul calls me and says, there's this band that I think is great, you should check them out, I may be more predisposed to check them out, because it's coming from a trusted source, from a network. So a lot of times the best way to get to somebody, as was mentioned earlier, is through a third party who's vouching for you will turn the receptors a little bit differently to the person that you're trying to target. And it's usually a lot more effective for somebody to hear about you from somebody else first than for you to make the cold call. Cold calls are really, it's the toughest way to go, and networking is definitely more effective.
It helps, but I tell you too, it also helps if you know how to present yourself. Like you were saying, don't tell me how great you are, but tell me why I might be interested in you anyway. I actually I'd like to say, I received the most eloquent email ever from a band member, and it was enough of it to intrigue me. He wasn't, oh, I'm great, I'm the next big thing, I'm all this. It was just basically, here I am, here's what I do. It wasn't even a style of music that I would normally work with, but the email intrigued me enough to listen, and we signed up with him. So
it does, it does
yeah,
occasionally
you never
happen.
know.
You had a question.
I did. I have a question and a comment. What you brought up about the singer-songwriter and this is their band. I've gone through, of course, I'm learning that distributing myself as the artist, but I'm also working as publicist for a young lady with hip-hop artists. So we're trying to figure out how to bridge the gap in getting the work. I'm not going to do too many more open mics because I've already built up my local presence enough where I should be able to go back out and get 500 to 1,000 things on the email list. So that's one thing that I have to do for myself. But as I advise my artists to do, yes, to build your local presence, you have to go and match out to every open mic that you find. And now, don't make the mistake that I made, but collect the email addresses while you're out there the first time around. So you don't have to go back and spend money at the door. Okay, but maybe on a local setting, instead of the band, maybe we join forces as singers, songwriters, and the message is so much more. Because to me, it seems like the industry is turning around where they're looking for good content. Whatever we're looking for. So, but my question is how? How do I, as an artist management company and an artist, present myself professionally as well, not misrepresent my intention to get paid for what I'm doing? Because I'm not gonna. I'll open a couple of big acts for free. I don't know if the boys are getting paid. The band getting paid, but are they going home with money too?
They are, I don't get paid.
But the band getting paid.
The band.
A lot of times we do it for free because of the exposure.
Right. And I'm
Because
willing to do that.
We get in front of 10,000.
I'm willing to do that so much, but there's got to be a better way to get exposure. So how do we get the exposure we need when we know we've got the fan base?
There is no easy way to do that, and that is what you have to do to get that exposure. You have to decide how much of it you can do and find the work that supports the ability to do that.
Yeah,
So
that,
at that point, who's responsible for going to people who are making hand over fist with crowds of over 10,000 heads and saying, we need you to make a better deal for us than this?
well, that would
like,
be.
how are they able to like get bands? I mean, is this desperation to be a star that they get people to sign on for nothing?
No, sure.
Okay, Tony's worked with Imogene Heat. Imogene Heat just 5 days ago released a new CD, right? It was contributed to by her fans. She's had a presence on YouTube, MySpace, Facebook, and what she did is she went through the entire process. She, through beat blogs, video blogs, through blogs, said, this is what I'm going to do. Give me your feedback. They did. And right now, it's about web presence. If
Well, I'm not.
nothing else,
I'm not
they
sure
put
I understand your.
presence on the site.
Yeah,
Your
I'm not
question
sure I
is.
understand the question.
Your question is who represent. How do you cut a better deal for yourself?
Like within like the agent and
Well,
the
it would be the agent.
whoever, like, who is it that's responsible for
It's-
going to whoever is setting up a festival or something with 10,000? That's the example she gave. Exposure of 10,000 people, and the band would have to be the one to agree to play for nothing. But who's the responsible party in this mix for saying this is the cut we want of these profits? It's not fair for people to play for nothing.
Well, I agree, and I think it's totally unfair that the industry even tended to bring that to the table, but
you have to stop people from doing that at some point.
Well,
the
it's
art,
not-
the artist.
If you refuse to play for nothing at that level, come on, it's not a coffee house anymore. This enterprise is making a lot of money, and there's not.
In a roundabout way, though, and I think this is important, this band in the back gained their local region. They have a fan base. The city is very aware of this band. This festival promoter comes into town, he's put his budget together, and that slot isn't going to pay no matter what I ask or say. They have to make the decision. It's an honor they got the invite, and it was the work they put into the town that brought that back to
And
them.
people work for free all the
They
time.
can refuse to do
Not
that,
just
but
bands.
that's 10,000 people, and they could sell 100 CDs. Well, there you go.
There's merch sales, but there's
And you
also-
never know who's going to be in that audience in that 10,000
That's
people.
right.
Because I might be there and say, you know, I put on a festival. I go to festivals all over the country, and I see new acts all the time, and I bring new acts to my festival all the time that 90% of the people in my neighborhood have never heard of.
That's just like the festival you just put on a tree for the
Right.
Blues Festival. I was there.
Right.
But I didn't know he was there, and I seen,
Well,
Yeah.
and I would say just because there's 10,000 people there doesn't always mean that people are making money too. Paul,
True.
Paul can speak to that. It's an enormous undertaking, and you might
Yeah,
need 15,000
yeah.
people.
Putting on a festival is not cheap.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hidden costs, and you know, and you know, if anybody wants to talk to me about that, because I do festival consulting around the country for festivals. So after this, I'll be more than happy to talk to people. But you know, again, getting back, you're playing in front of 10,000 people. There might be a lot of talent buyers out there, club owners, that's going to get you to that next step. So.
we're opening for a bigger act.
Right.
Jack Ingram.
Right.
His manager's there. All his stage people are there. So that's when we look at it. That's how we get it.
And I think
And
in
you
every
gotta
industry, people put, you know, there's internships, there's all kinds of ways that people get involved and have to work for free to get to a certain point. And it's a personal decision how long you want to do that before you feel like you need to start getting paid. And if you cross that line and you're still not getting paid, you may need to change careers, you know? I mean,
Right, because even we work for free
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
an agent
if I'm
will.
passionate about something. I'll
Right,
work.
exactly, and I really believe in it, then I may put you somewhere and not take the fee. It just depends, everybody's gotta be willing to do that, and it's, one of my band leaders has a saying that I've adopted, if you want this, you gotta be willing to bleed it. And that means, if you wanna play for free, you're being paid with the exposure.
has
There's
value.
no telling what that exposure is gonna bring. You know, somebody, like Paul said, he might see you there and bring you to his festival, and he might pay you. So you did get paid. You can't look at it that way, or this may not be something you want to pursue, because there's a lot of freebies in it, I'm going to tell you right now, even from our perspective.
If I was a developing artist, I'd be much more likely to say no to playing free in a coffee house than I would to say
No
no
at a
to being
festival.
playing in front of 10,000 people, because there's so much more upside to the potential there. If I'm not bringing in those 10,000 people, then I'm not the person that should be getting paid as if there were 10,000 people there. If I'm bringing those 10,000 people, you better believe I'm getting paid.
Yeah,
and they are getting, and those people are getting paid, and
Yeah.
they're getting paid almost too much, because they go out there and go, look, you know, you're just putting on a festival. I brought all the people, and the festivals are having trouble right now making money.
This is that is the crux of it all. If you can sell a ticket, if you are a headline draw, then there is no question that you are going to get paid. But if what's the name of your band? Dixie Tradition. If you were to headline a festival in New England, would you sell 10,000 tickets? No, of course. But
I just went in there, dropped off the CD and publicity thing, and they were like, well, do you want to leave some? And I was like, no, because we don't have a following here.
right, but
You sit on your shelf, you know, and so no, but I will be in touch.
But the point is, if Garth Brooks headlined it, he would sell 10,000 tickets. And if you were asked to be the opening act for no money, because you can't sell a ticket because nobody knows who you are, but 10,000 people see how good you are, that's an invaluable exposure.
And that's another, and I'll bring this up real briefly, I apologize. But we sung at the Rebel, which is a little festival, probably in our hometown, okay? I know 5 minutes, that's a little. So there was 100 people that come to see us that day. We were on the backstage, there's like 36, we would sing to 5 or 10,000, we don't care. From that festival, Kip Holloway, who runs that place, a week later called us and said, Tanya, we want you guys to go to Disney World. Dixie Tradition to go to Disney World and represent Louisiana at the 2008 Food and Wine Festival. We sung in front of 70,000 people from Ireland to Washington to wherever. Sold over 300 CDs in 5 days. We were there for 5 days. We did over 4 days, 5 20-minute shows a day. It was work. But 70,000 people.
Right.
They paid for our trip and our hotel rooms. There you go.
wrap-up signal. So if there's any other questions, we maybe have time for one more. Otherwise, I would like to thank our panelists for participating so energetically and enthusiastically, and I thank you, the audience, for coming out and being patient with us as we give you all kinds of conflicting and sometimes confusing information. But you know, I was saying just this morning, if you want to be a lawyer, you get good grades in school, you go to law school, you intern, and you become a lawyer. And it's pretty much set that can happen. Music business is not like that in any way, shape, or form. There is no path. There is no, the thing that works for one person does not work for the next. And the thing that works at one venue does not work in the next. And so sometimes we're just all alchemists up here trying to, you know, give a grain of truth that, you know, that may apply and it may not. And it's just one of the kind of wacky things about this business. But I think that the longer you're in it and the more you keep trying, you learn what your own personal chemistry is. You make your own alchemy, and I hope you all find some success with it. All right. Thank you.
Do you know this person? He's from England.